CIOs are commonly blamed for digital transformation and ERP failures, but should they be? And how can you avoid that dynamic? That's what I want to talk about here today. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent and tech-agnostic consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world navigate their digital transformation journeys. And one of the stakeholders that I more commonly work with at Third Stage Consulting is a CIO. And in my career, I've noticed that CIOs often take a brunt of the blame when things go wrong with the digital transformation or ERP implementation. On the flip side of that, though, CIOs oftentimes don't have complete control over the things that are likely to make the project successful. And sometimes CIOs get unfairly blamed for the challenges and the failure points that these projects experience. I've also seen a lot of CIOs who got fired over troubled projects. I've seen them end up as witnesses in litigation for a lawsuit related to a failed implementation. And what I want to do today is talk to you about what I would suggest to any CIO who's embarking on a digital transformation to take that bullseye off you, to take the pressure off you, not to deflect it, not to avoid accountability and to CYA necessarily, but really to help ensure that you have the support you need to make the project successful. And I want to share with you some of my thoughts on decisions you probably do have control over that are more likely to make you successful in your role. And I also want to share with you some ways to hedge or mitigate against some of the challenges that you'll inevitably face as a CIO. Before we dive too far into today's content, I want to share a little bit of information about Third Stage Consulting and who we are. Third Stage Consulting Group is an independent technology agnostic provider of consulting services to help clients through their digital transformations. We help with digital strategy and software selection, as well as implementation planning. And during implementation, we provide services related to program management, organizational change, business process improvement, as well as enterprise architecture. These are just some of the services we provide. We have offices in North America as well as Europe and Asia Pacific. So if you'd like to learn more, I encourage you to check out our resource center, which includes a number of resources that will help you through your digital transformation. And you can access that for free using the QR code here or the links below. You can also reach out to me directly if you'd like to discuss your digital transformation and brainstorm ideas on how to improve where you're headed on your journey. Now let's jump back into today's content. In a perfect world, as a CIO, you might outsource your entire digital transformation project, whether it's an ERP implementation, an AI project, CRM, whatever it may be. But in reality, what that does is it creates a lot of challenges for you as an individual and for your organization. It may sound good in theory because if you have someone else come in as an expert to take over the project and they've got all the experience to avoid some of the pitfalls that other organizations make, it sounds good in theory, but it doesn't ever work out that way when you outsource a project because it's people inside the organization that are more likely to make the project successful. And then you add to the fact that most software vendors and system integrators and ERP consultants in general have conflicts of interest with your needs in that they actually benefit if the project takes longer than expected, and they actually benefit if you outsource complete control to them. That's not a healthy thing for organizations. The last thing I'd add here is it creates a sense of learned helplessness. Your overall team, not just you individually as a CIO, but your overall team now will become helpless and have this learned helplessness of having to defer to the expert because they don't know any better. They don't know what they need to know to make the project successful. Now, on one hand, yes, you need the outside experts. You need outside help to help you through the project, but it's important to make sure you don't go too far down that path and that you find the right balance of having internal capabilities and support and internal ownership and support, as well as augmenting that with outside support. So one of the biggest things you can do is make sure you don't outsource the project, because every time I've seen a project that gets heavily outsourced to an outside third party like a software vendor or system integrator, those failure rates are astronomically higher than organizations that don't. And the reason for that is because there's a lack of accountability and ownership internally, and your third parties have a conflict of interest that is going to drive up your cost and the time it takes to implement new technology. As a CIO, you absolutely want to be heavily involved in a digital transformation or ERP project. I think that goes without saying, but it can't just be you that's the executive sponsor. It can't be you that's on the hook on your own within the executive team and within the executive steering committee. You might be a co-sponsor, but you shouldn't be the only sponsor. And if you are, I would highly encourage you to get someone from the business side to be a co-sponsor with you. And it may be that it may be even better to have a single executive sponsor that is someone other than you, not because you're not capable, but because you need the business to own this project. It can't be something that IT forces down the throats of the business. You need someone from the business to take ownership and to make business decisions around the project. Oftentimes it's the COO or the CFO. That's the most common executive sponsors that we see outside of the IT group. And we have seen it work very well where you have a CIO and a COO or a CFO supporting the project together. But the key here is that you don't want to be the only person accountable for the executive sponsor role, because there's so many things that are outside of your control, and you need those peers on the business side to be able to support you with resources, with decision making, with strategic direction, with clarity, with the change management, the training, all this stuff that's completely outside of your control, but it is not outside the control of those business stakeholders. So make sure you involve the right people from your business, whether it's an executive sponsor that co-sponsors with you, and or make sure you have other stakeholders in the project from the business side that are heavily involved in the project, so it doesn't become just an IT project. Another thing you can do as CIO to ensure that you take the bullseye off you and you take the pressure off you and potentially failing in this project is to ensure that you do proper planning and you have a clear vision and a clear strategy and a clear plan before you bring in your software vendors and your implementation partners and your system integrators. The reason for that is because you need to work with the business to define what you want your business to look like in the future, how you want to staff the project internally, how you want your people to support the project, what your overall plan is going to be, what your seasonality looks like, what resource availability looks like, what you want your future state operating model to look like, how you want to deploy technology in your organization. All that stuff are important decisions that need to be made before you start bringing in the outside consultants. The minute you bring in the outside technical consultants and the people that are there to design, build, and deploy software, the meter starts running at a very high rate. You've got a lot of people billing by the hour, and every decision you make, every minute or every hour, every day, every week you take to make business decisions, key business decisions, that's money and time lost at a very high rate. If you can make those decisions before the meter's running hot, you're going to be able to be a lot more effective in the way you use your resources and use your budget. So make sure that you take that time to do phase 0 implementation planning up front. And that could be something that takes anywhere from 3 months for a mid-sized organization to maybe 6 months or more for a larger organization. And keep in mind that your software vendor, your system integrator absolutely will pressure you to start their team sooner because they have a conflict of interest. They have an economic interest in seeing their team get staffed up as quickly as possible, as big as possible, so that they can generate revenue as fast as possible. However, that is not in your best interest in most cases. You might selectively choose some of that technical team to provide inputs, or you can hire a third-party independent tech agnostic consulting firm like ours at Third Stage to help you with that. But that's a very light, and that should be a very light approach. It should be very light in terms of the meter running, and it should be a way for you to get all your ducks in a row, get organized, work out all the messy details and the messy decisions that need to be made, do that up front, and then bring on the expensive consultants, the expensive technical consultants. They're going to run at a higher rate later on. One of the most important things you can do to ensure that you're successful as a CIO is to hire independent tech agnostic advisors that are not affiliated with the software vendor. And when I say they're not affiliated with the software vendor, I mean that they're not receiving commissions for selling more software. They're not receiving a bump in their revenue for getting you up and running as quickly as possible. Even though that sounds good in theory, it generally creates more problems than it solves. And you want someone who's only paid by you. You want someone who's only making money off of you. You don't want someone there that's making money off the software vendor and feeling the pressure from a software vendor to staff up a project as quickly as possible. So having an independent outside advisor that's not affiliated with the software vendor, it's going to allow you to make objective decisions around how technology is going to get used, where it may not get used, where you may need a third-party solution to augment the core solution, which, by the way, your software vendor generally won't want that. They'll want you to double down on their suite of products, which may or may not be the right answer for you, but you need that independent tech advisor that can help you through that process to make decisions that are right for you from a business perspective, not just a technology perspective. And if you'd like to learn more about how Third Stage can help you in that regard, you can certainly reach out to me. I've included my contact information below. You can also look at our website to learn more at thirdstage-consulting.com. The last word of advice I'd leave you with as a CIO and your quest to protect your own sanity and your own job as well as to make your project more successful is to listen to your instincts. I work with a lot of CIOs who know deep down that they shouldn't do a lot of the things they do, but they make bad decisions and they execute poorly because they get pressure from biased third parties like the software vendor and or the system integrator to do things that aren't in their best interest. And again, a lot of times it comes down to let's slam in this technology as quickly as possible. Let's avoid talking about the current state because it doesn't matter. All we really care about is the future state because our technology is going to solve all your problems. All these little decisions add up into a really big series of bad decisions that can lead to failure. And again, if you're the one responsible for enabling that behavior, then you're more likely to have a big bullseye on you when it comes time to blame someone for the challenges that ensue. So as a CIO, if you have a strong instinct or a strong feeling that something's wrong, you have to listen to that, at least investigate it. It may be that it's just a flawed perception, but more often than not, I found that CIOs' guts are accurate. They oftentimes just ignore that gut feeling because they feel so much pressure from the software vendor or the big system integrator or the big consultancy to bring on resources and do things a different way that doesn't feel quite right. And what you don't want to do is wait until you're halfway through a project and you're feeling the pain of a failed project in motion. You don't want to wait until then to listen to your instincts. You want to listen to your instincts much sooner, knowing that you can always adapt and speed up later if you need to or if you want to. But chances are pretty high that if you need to slow down or pivot, you're probably on the right track and it may be worth doing. So I hope this has given you some ideas and guidance on how to avoid some of the pitfalls that we see CIOs fall into oftentimes, especially as it relates to CIOs taking the brunt of the blame for troubled projects and challenges that come along with these projects. If you'd like to receive further advice on what I would suggest to you in your current situation, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to be an informal sounding board for you and chat with you about any challenges you're facing, questions you may have, uncertainties you have around your project. I'm happy to have an offline conversation with you about that. You can reach out to me. I've included my contact information below. And be sure to also read our Lessons from 1,000 Digital Transformations ebook. It's a book that outlines some of the biggest lessons that we have helping CIOs like yourself through their digital transformation projects and some of the tips we have to make your project successful. You can read that by scanning the QR code right here or go to the links below. So I hope you found this information useful and hope you have a great day. We're an independent tech agnostic consulting firm that Lessons from 1,000 Digital Transformations ebook. It's a book.